So here we are at the end of our series of Nissan Leaf, and we come down to the Nissan Leaf and the Nissan Leaf owner himself. I'm with Kamron Irani, who owns a 2018 short-range Nissan Leaf, and he's going to tell us his story as to how he came into ownership and his experiences with the storied vehicle. Kamron, welcome and thank you. Tell me about yourself. How did you get involved in this? How did you get into the business of owning an electric car? Starting with your job and your experiences with the Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, so I got an electric vehicle when I was still in college. And so my gas car was giving out. And so my dad said...
What kind of car was that?
It was a Chrysler Sebring.
Sebring?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a coupe. I liked the car, but it just gave so many problems. And then finally, it's like, it just keeps stalling. Wouldn't turn on at times.
Yeah.
So I told my dad, like, hey, the car's like giving out. And he's like, all right. And he actually told me, like, what about an electric car? And so I started doing like my research with electric cars. I sort of came into the Fiat 500e and the Nissan Leaf at the time. And just the Nissan Leaf felt more comfortable. I test drove them both. The Nissan Leaf felt more comfortable. It was 4-door. And so I ended up going with that one.
Your father got you involved.
Yeah.
You didn't take the initiative on your own.
Right.
What was that about?
It's just, I mean, at the time, I was still a college student. He was going to be paying for the car. So it's like, I don't think I had like much choice. It was sort of like whatever he felt like was good for me. I'd take what I get.
Did he ever say why he wanted you to get turned on to electric cars?
Well, he liked electric cars just because of like the low maintenance for them and not having to pay for gas. Because I was driving a lot and I did have electric charging stations at school. And so he's like, hey, why don't you just get an electric vehicle? It makes sense in your situation. And it did. School was only 10 miles away. I could charge at school. So it made sense to get that.
And how much of a difference has that made financially? Is there a substantive difference in insurance, in your maintenance costs? Talk about that.
Yeah, maintenance costs. So my first Leaf, I had for 4 years. And I did maybe one tire rotation out of those 4 years.
That's it?
That's it. That's all I had
How
to
many
do.
years?
4 years.
And you're on schedule?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did about one tire rotation. There was nothing else. Never ran out of windshield wiper fluid. Never had to get my brake fluid redone. Gas-wise, I charged at school probably 90% of the time. So zero. I'd say like maybe a couple like dollars worth of electricity went to that thing from home.
One of the questions I've been asked lately on the internet is, and through email, is how much does it cost to fill up, if you will, an electric car? And, I give all different kinds of answers. So there's no better way to ask than somebody who owns a particular kind of car. So for a Nissan Leaf, if you're on empty, which actually, as you know, you really don't want to do, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But from empty, to full, how much does it cost? Would you know?
So it depends on your electricity usage. My old Leaf was 24 kilowatt hours. And so our home electricity rates over here is about, and we have solar, but not counting solar, it's about 10 cents a kilowatt, which is pretty low. And so, yeah, it would just be about $2.40
to fill up the whole tank.
To fill up the whole tank, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that would give me about, I believe it was 80 miles.
Now, your home charger, that's a
Yeah.
level 2 charger?
It's a level 2 charger.
That's connected to a solar charger you just mentioned, right?
Yeah, so we do have solar panels.
So you are aware that you are now all green.
Right.
You're not burning any,
Right.
And then plus, you're now in your first year of ownership of the car?
Of my new Leaf, yeah.
Yes. By
Year
the
and a half.
end of the second year, you will have paid off whatever carbon you use for its assembly.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes,
I didn't know
yes.
that.
So
Yeah.
from that point on, it'll pay for itself as far as not only for gasoline, it also pays for itself for the industrial assembly process to make it. So,
Right.
yeah, that's amazing. So let's go back a little bit and talk about your old Leaf. Was
Okay.
that new when you purchased it?
Yeah, it was a brand new Leaf.
And
Yeah.
that was a lease, right?
It was a lease. Yeah.
Tell us about your Leaf 1, we'll call it, experience.
Yeah, so one of the biggest concerns with getting an electric vehicle is the battery. Like I said, there's really no maintenance, but the battery is almost like the cost of a car. And so if the battery degrades or something happens to it, sort of stuck in the water. And so the idea was, at the time, Nissan was giving full rebates. Whether you lease it or you purchase it, you're going to get the $7,500 off plus $2,500 from California. And so it just made sense to sort of lease it. It was our first electric vehicle. We weren't really sure what to expect. And we didn't want the headaches of like what happens if the battery starts degrading, you know? And so we didn't want to really worry about any of that. So we went ahead and leased the car. That was sort of the decision with the leasing, why purchase the car.
And what was your experience like leasing? Because there's people out there that have never leased before.
Mm-hmm.
I've been telling him this is the best route to go when you go electric. There's going to be a lot of new leasees out there
mm-hmm.
that have never done this before. Talk to them about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good experience, you know, especially with an electric car. So my new Leaf is a purchase, so I'm still like trying to see.
We'll get to that in a second. But
yeah. So at the time, like the leasing, I felt like a good decision. You know, like the discounts, usually people don't want to purchase a new car anyways. But because of the incentives, especially in California or like Colorado, they have like great incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was a good experience. Never had to worry about anything like that. But I also didn't have anything to worry about. Like very rarely did I actually go to the dealership to get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
Basically never, besides the tire rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was a good experience. There's nothing negative I can say about the leasing.
And what happened when you turned the car in? I've had friends. I have this circle of friends that are about BMW,
mm-hmm.
and they could be quite picky. One had to go get a whole set of tires. You know, had the curb scrape on the rims or what have you.
Uh-huh.
Did you have any of those experiences?
No, maybe it might be the dealership.
Yeah.
I don't even think they went and looked at the car. They're like, "This is the key for the car." It's like, yeah, it's parked outside. Because I dropped it off when I was picking up my new one, so maybe it was just that transition to the fact that I'm getting a new Nissan Leaf. They sort of like forgave everything. But yeah, there was no issues turning in the lease.
Now, with Leaf 1, what was the range?
I think it was about 80 miles.
80 miles.
Brand new, yeah.
Yeah, and with Leaf 2, the new one.
Yeah, it's about 150.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you running out of gas in your Leaf.
Okay.
What that experience was like.
Yeah, it's a scary experience, especially, so you start gauging percentage-wise. The cars usually give you like, here's a mile estimate. But I feel like as an electric vehicle driver, you sort of start knowing based off percentage rather than the mile estimate that they give to you. Because that changes very drastically based on your driving habits. And so I was coming back from school and I sort of anticipated like, all right, this is going to be a close one, but I didn't want to wait at school to charge up. And so
let me interrupt you there.
Yeah.
This would be the equivalent of you running on fumes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
And so I started driving home, and with electric cars as well, traffic's always good. It's better than driving at high speeds.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the slower you go in a situation like that, the better off you are.
The better off you are. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And so, but unfortunately, when I was driving home, usually there was traffic, but this time it was like not that much traffic. And so my estimates were sort of off, and I was on the last like stroke of my freeway. And all of a sudden my car, so once it gets to 5%, you start seeing dashes. You don't have any idea where you were at from that point on. And so I was on dashes for a while, and finally this little turtle icon came on. And so that means
Let me stop you there. The turtle, that sounds like fail safe.
Right.
Okay. What happens when you're in fail safe mode?
Yeah, they sort of limit the powertrain. So you can't drive as fast. All power delivery gets substantially lower.
Okay, so it's all focused on the motor
Yeah.
and trying to nudge you along to get to a charger.
Yeah, I was already with like the AC off, windows like closed, getting as aerodynamic as I could. So I was like sweating in the car just to save as much energy.
That was
as I
on your
could.
own volition, though. You shut the AC off.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Okay.
It's like I know this is gonna be close. I'm turning everything off.
Yeah.
Just trying to make it home. And so once the turtle mode came on, I was still cruising a bit. So the power delivery is drastically reduced. And so you can't even like maintain high speeds for you anymore.
Yeah.
And so I tried to like not press the brakes as much as I could because I knew if I was gonna press the brakes, there's no way I'm getting up to highway speeds anymore. Fortunately, as I got closer to the exit, I had to stop. And once I like stopped, just moving back up, it wouldn't let me go like past 30 miles per hour. And so I I turned on my hazards lights. I didn't want to like get people pissed off, but I was like so close to the exit that I sort of just like powered through it. And so I was going 30 miles per hour as right most with my hazards on, trying to get to the exit. Luckily, the exit's like right here, and so I was able to make it home. But it was definitely a scary experience going that slow on the freeway.
Was it a learning experience?
Yeah, I definitely like should have spent 10 extra minutes, 20 extra minutes charging up.
And will it happen again? Is it one of these things where it happened once that okay, I get it, and you really try harder not to let it happen again?
Yeah, so that was pretty close to when I first got the car. So it definitely like taught me, and I haven't had a close encounter since.
So let's talk about range anxiety.
Yeah.
One of the things that I experience on the internet in my comments section is sometimes a cyber assault on me when I talk about SUVs like Jaguar I-Pace, Mercedes EQC, and Audi e-tron having 230, 40-mile ranges. That's woefully insufficient for a larger SUV. And I tell them 235-mile range in the real world, that's about 200-mile range. Well, how do you feel about that? You have 150, you had 80 miles with Leaf 1,
right?
150 with Leaf 2.
Right.
What is the actual equivalent of range you would consider before you need to recharge?
I definitely, I it's hard for me because I do live 10 miles away, and I don't live. I work 10 miles away, and I always have a charging station right then and there, which I can guarantee I'm going to get. And so I usually drop this thing down to about 15 miles before I'm like plugging in. So my range anxiety is pretty gone just because of my situation. I will say though, for my old Leaf, once I would get to like 40%, 30%, I'm not worried about trips anymore until I charge up.
So you try to keep a third of your juice,
as like
for reserve.
Yeah, reserve, exactly.
And that's where most EV owners should be with their chargeable vehicles. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so therefore having a good 30-40 miles for a 230, 40-mile car, is within that zone.
Yeah, I think so. I think 30 miles is enough to get you places.
Yeah.
Just in case you need to get to the charging station.